Linux Out Loud is firing up our mics, connecting those headphones as we search the community for themes to expand upon. We keep the banter friendly, the conversation somewhat on topic, and we have fun doing it. This week, we're continuing that conversation we had with Bill. Let's jump into episode 80. So here I am in the studio all by myself. No Matt, no Bill, no Nate. But don't worry. There is so much left over from episode 79. Actually, the recording of that episode was almost 2 hours long. So instead of giving you one really long episode, I've broken it up into two. Let's pick up right where we left off. I'm super jealous of some of your newer hardware though, and that is additional monitors. I'm right now running 3 monitors, but they're not all the same size. And there's something to be said about running multiple monitors that are all the exact same monitor, the same configuration, and that flow between them. Now, you picked these up apparently on a Black Friday deal, but that doesn't matter. I'm jealous. I'm so jealous.
I did pick up some new monitors, and believe it or not, they're really just for work. So what you guys can't see is what's to my right, and that is where I keep my work system, which runs Windows, unfortunately. But that's the reality I work in, is
the nature of it,
the job that I have. But one of the things that is always holding me back is that the help desk management system that I use has a lot of horizontal scaling that always forces me to scroll left and right across. So I picked up these 3 monitors that are 2K, and I am in the process of putting them on a proper arm on my desk. And then that way, when I stand with the sit stand desk, I'm not stooping down like this to look at the monitors. Yeah. My plan is, if this setup works here, then at my office, which is about 15 minutes from here and undergoing a lot of construction right now, when we finish the remodel, then I'm going to replicate the same setup at that other office.
Nice.
So I'll be able to have all of my network software in front of me at a resolution where I can see more per pixel and more per square inch of that monitor, which will make my life a lot easier, especially where I'm dealing with, let's say, a diagram of a floor plan, and then a web page where I'm dropping access points on it. Having more real estate means that I can actually work a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, I love this. I know that you probably won't share pictures of that one, at least publicly, but I would love to see what it looks like when you get it put together. What kind of arm are you using? Is it an arm that'll support all 3 of them, or are they on their own arm?
The arm is a single unit, and the arm can move in and out. It can move front and back or up and down. And that was also on a Black Friday special.
Nice.
The most important thing that I got for it, though, was a metal plate to put at the very base of the monitor stand, because if you're not careful, and this is what happened to me the first time, the whole thing will pitch forward.
Ooh.
It's too much weight for the base of the arm. So imagine holding
dig into the wood.
Exactly. So, or it just completely lets go and falls down. So imagine you holding a 20-pound suitcase in front of you like this, or closer to you like this. If you hold it in front of you, your arm's going to want to drop. And that's what happens with monitors sometimes.
Right.
I've not attempted to mount the 49-inch monitor that I'm using with you guys right now onto an arm. I'm afraid.
That takes a pretty special monitor. So right now, I've got my 32-inch monitor that I've had on an arm. I've actually dropped it down to the desk when I added this 27-inch on it, just so I could get everything in the proper position. But I got that arm because it had the specifications to take some of the extra weight, and the base on it is quite a bit larger than some of the other ones. We got Nate doing some measurements back there. So I know that I got an arm specifically that could take the extra weight. And I know I've paid more money for that arm, so it could take the additional weight of this larger monitor. But it's so nice to have monitors on the arm. So the TV that I'm using as a monitor is mounted to the wall, and that was kind of a pain in the butt. It's really only nice to use if I'm standing, because also sit stand desks, I'm standing right now. So this one's only really comfortable to use if I'm standing. My main monitor isn't as comfortable to use because on the stand that it came with, it's just a little bit too low. If I'm sitting, it's okay. If I'm standing at my desk, it's definitely a bit too low to have my keyboard at that comfortable position for my arms. You know exactly what I mean when you're dealing with that. So I would like to get some more, and I've seen an arm that will hold up to 4 monitors, which right now that's my goal. That's my dream. That's what I want. I want 4 monitors, so it would be 3 across the bottom and 1 at the top above the other ones. Hopefully.
Make sure it tilts a little bit towards you.
Yes,
Otherwise,
yes.
you're really going to have a problem with your neck.
Pink neck position. Well, that's part of the problem with this one over here to my left. If I'm sitting, is you end up with that kink neck position. And then my chiropractor gets to see me all the time because I'm like, I've been working.
Actually, the impetus for replacing the monitors that I had was a problem with looking at spreadsheets. If I had black lines on the white spreadsheet, the monitors would start to squeal.
Oh.
Very high pitched, like a blown capacitor kind of a squeal. And it got to the point where I had to take all the lines out of the spreadsheets in order for me to be able to not have to wear earplugs or headphones when working.
That's horrific. Like, holy crap.
Not fun at all. So I said, enough is enough. If I'm going to spend money on monitors, I'm going to do it when they're on sale. And I'm going to get ones that have a decent rating, because I think some of the things we forget about are there are 3 parts of a computer that we interact with all day long: your keyboard, your mouse, and your monitor. You stare at your monitor for hours at a time. You handle your keyboard and mouse for many hours at a day. Make that experience as comfortable as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely the goal with the eventual 4 monitor setup, is not only to make that experience comfortable, but just to make the workflow flow better. That's just an absolute horrible sentence. But I'm curious, when you actually have this all set back up, how it's working. Do you like these monitors that you purchased on a sale? And I know you mentioned before, like pre-show, that color was something that you were concerned about. Now, you don't do really any color work. So why was color at the top of the list for you with these monitors?
When I do a network layout, we use a term in IT called a heat map. And what a heat map is how much Wi-Fi signal saturates a given space off of an access point. And that is measured by a color usually. So I want to look at, I may not be as color specific as you are when you're doing photography or other artistic editing, but I want to have clarity so that when I'm placing an access point in, let's say, a room that has concrete walls versus wood walls, I know how much Wi-Fi is going to go through those concrete walls versus the wood walls.
So it's more like having more colors. So a panel can represent more colors. So you get that fade, you get that transition between the colors on your monitor. Yeah.
Correct.
Nice.
And the refresh rate, of course. I don't need a migraine from doing my job. I love my job, but just like any other job, it will generate its own set of migraines. I don't need my equipment to also be
to also add to
factor.
that. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely.
Your equipment should make your job less of a headache, not enhance the headache that it already is.
Definitely.
Exactly that.
Right. That's
but we
how I
are
feel about
dealing
this
with
podcast.
Well, I mean, but we are dealing with other headaches, and that involves construction. So I am not an expert on construction, which is why I work in IT, but we are in the process of remodeling the office. And one thing that I'm learning about remodeling and construction work is that you are always going to find things in your walls that you were not expecting. So as we have found in our walls, we found things like cloth insulated wiring that's attached with metal staples that's rubbing against the cloth wiring and worn it out to where outlets are being grounded to the staple, or improperly grounded outlets in the ceiling. And one of the things that I really appreciate about my boss is that he comes from an electrical engineering background, and I've learned so much about just good electrical safety best practices from him. So he's been a huge asset to me. And I've enjoyed going through some of this with him, ripping lights out of ceilings or doing sheetrock and tape, because those are skills that I don't really have a lot of experience with. And I'm getting a chance to learn some of that as we go through this process. So goodbye faux wood panel walls, goodbye orange shag carpet. And we move on to the 20th century as we say goodbye to 1974.
Very nice. Very nice. I would say that would make a better working environment better, or for sure. Yes.
I think you should preserve one area of the facility to still have that 1970s look, and put like a nice MSI 8080 there doing its blinky blinky thing, with some faux wood walls. I think that'd be beautiful.
My coworkers and bosses and everybody else that's affiliated would strongly disagree. I wish that I could keep a vintage section like that, but that would mean that would be the first thing that the clients get to see when they walk in. And I'm not sure that's the right impression that we would want to give off of our facility.
But so many of your clients are remote. I mean, you travel all over the United States. I'm
we do have people that come in and visit us from time to time.
We'll just tell them we're preserving our heritage.
I should do that. I should tell them we're preserving our heritage in this unique museum space that we've curated just for visitors.
Just for visitors.
As meanwhile, Home Assistant is setting all the smart lights to go on and off, and all the other, a collision of two worlds.
Like an automation or a scene, a 1970 scene, and it'll like drop a disco ball and dun, 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 and everything else. That'd be great.
I have no words. I'm at a loss at this point.
Okay, well. So I see you're also using Tailscale at work. Is that for everything, or is it just between you and like something at work?
We're starting to look at using Tailscale for a variety of purposes. Now, one of the neat things about Tailscale is that you can connect to not only just one machine, but to an entire network remotely. Right now, to test it out, we are using it to connect different client sites to each other that need access. And one of the things that Tailscale does really well that some other VPN solutions do not is limiting the machines in which a person has access to. So, for example, one of my schools is using Tailscale to connect their finance team to their financial management server, but only that server. They don't have access to the rest of the network. They can connect to that server, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the benefits that I'm using to try to get Tailscale into our clients is you can narrow the scope of what your users need to be able to access. So putting security first in that respect.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm also experimenting with Tailscale. I don't think for like any kind of commercial deployment, but I'd like to, at some point, not here for the show because it would take that. Basically, that'd be a show in and of itself. But I would like to talk to you about Tailscale and some other implementations. We did an evaluation of Tailscale, like a testing, an exploration on Linux Saloon of Tailscale, and I've been using it ever since, and I love it. So yeah, Tailscale is pretty cool. And this is something I think we should definitely continue to chat about.
Happy to chat with you about it offline.
Talk about our offline and online chat.
Yes, at least off air anyway. Off air, we're not actually live off podcast. I don't know.
Well, some of it goes to the air, I'm sure, somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
There is air
Wi-Fi.
connecting us.
Wi-Fi, yeah.
So, Matt, I see that you've been checking out a new kind of game launcher. Now, this is surprising to me that you would be interested in a topic involving gaming.
Never.
Not really, just
no,
kidding.
It's weird.
Never.
But I'm always interested in this kind of a thing because we need more open source game launchers. So tell us a little bit about this.
So most people that are involved in the Linux gaming sphere are gonna know about Heroic Launcher. It is the all-in-one launcher that we kind of need on Linux for a lot of the tertiary stores that don't really support Linux. I'm looking at you, GOG, and I'm looking at you, EGS. that or Epic Game Store for those that don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know. Thanks for clarifying that.
So this is a native developed. So I recommend Heroic every day of the week over using something like Lutris and attaching EGS or Galaxy or any of that stuff, because you just introduce so many other headaches that leave it dependent on the community to update and figure out what update broke what. Whereas at least with Heroic, the developers actually using the platform.
Nice.
So it really does matter. So there are times where native apps do matter. And I'm usually one to be like, oh, it's Proton. Don't really care what magic makes it work as long as it works. But Heroic has EGS, GOG, and supports I think it's Prime Gaming stuff that you get with your Prime account. So you get occasionally free GOG games, free games that you can add to your EGS game collection to go on top of the games that Epic usually gives out because they can't, make a profit on their store. So it is the go-to that I use. They just had an update. I think it's to 2 something. I don't remember the exact release number, but they added GameScope, which is kind of the compositor single focus that it gives for single app focus. Mm-hmm. So it gives you a lot of different selections now, as far as like, oh, you can add like AMD FX, super scaling and all that stuff as far as the resolution, and get your performance. So to me, having something that is native developed and actually cares about the Linux community is great to see. I believe it got an Epic Mega Grant, which was kind of ironic.
Wow.
Well, it says a lot about the Epic Game Store. They do have a breakdown of using the EGS client, and they have a breakdown of using Heroic, and people on Linux tend to really care about RAM usage and utilization and all the other stuff. And I'm very much in the, I don't care. I mean, we're to the point
you
where like
care when you're watching your RAM hit 98% use and you're going, oh crap, maybe I need more RAM.
But that's more of a use case situation.
Wendy. Yes, it definitely is a use case. Right.
You're not, when 16 gigs and you're worried about like 2 gigs, or most general users aren't going to care. But anyway, I think this uses like 300 megs as opposed to like EGS, which uses like 900.
Yeah, that's nice.
But I mean, there's certain pros and cons to that. Again, I'm not a big, I appreciate the work Lutris does, but we tend to poke Lutris as go use Lutris. And it's like, probably not the best solution for if there's a native option that doesn't introduce more headaches that potentially can be there, then I'm all for that. So that's why I've recommended Mini Galaxy to you before for your native stuff. So Heroic is my go-to. And the reason I'm recommending this, I've recommended it before, is I was on X, Twitter, whatever
Twix
thing you
want to call it
Twix.
now. Yeah.
And there was this whole thing about there was this whole thread about just EGS and how it's not a good store. And I responded with just simply, regardless of platform, because I use Windows and Mac and all the other stuff. But
yeah,
I was like, regardless of platform, if I'm going to use anything related to EGS, it's not going to be the primary store. It's going to be Heroic over all the other ones.
Well, and one of the cool things about Heroic that I'm seeing from their GitHub page is you can pretty much install it any way you want to. They have a Flatpak. They've got native installer for Debian and its derivatives, Arch, Fedora, and then they also have an app image if you want to go that route, or a tar. Like, they have lots of different ways that you can install it.
So I was talking to one of the developers of Heroic when I was at the Ubuntu Summit, and I said, which way should I install it? And he goes, I like the Flatpak. I'm like, okay.
Nice.
I was going to say, it's a nice to see a legit alternative, because I think it was PC Gamer did an article and they talked about how they were using Heroic and they compared it to EGS, just like as a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like the actual files from the images for when you click on a game actually load like quickly.
Wow.
Whereas if you use EGS, it's calling it slow is an understatement. Yeah. So definitely probably the best solution for anything related to GOG, anything related to Epic, or anything related to your Amazon Prime stuff for
Nice.
Linux currently, because it solves a lot of headaches. I like Lutris, but it's just not the right solution a lot of the time.
So what I like about Lutris over Heroic is the integration to like a lot of older games and game preservation, like outside of GOG. And I think that's where Lutris really shines.
Oh.
So no, I agree.
And so like if you want to do something that's like, especially, to me, the golden age of PC gaming was the 90s. I think
we're
a lot
still
of
in them, according to you.
Well,
so does that mean you can play some of your DOS games in Lutris?
Yes, and actually it handles all those things quite nicely.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I agree.
And then what's also really cool is like old Linux games that were commercial titles, like remember the Loki installers, Matt? I'm sure you remember those. So there's work behind the scenes in Lutris to be able to actually basically create like platforms or whatever, like trackable platforms of those older systems, so you can play those old Linux games. That's actually the hardest thing to play in Linux are the old Linux games, believe it or not. Weird, but whatever. And so working on getting those to work effectively through Lutris. So that I think for game preservation, I feel like Lutris is kind of the go-to. For more modern games, I think probably your Heroic seems a bit easier. But I think it's a easier front end for sure.
Yeah, it's more about right solution for the right task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to me, if you're doing modern gaming, using Heroic is a lot more simple, easier than jumping through the potential breaks that Lutris can provide for those other launchers. Now, for things like emulation and like those essentially bottles is probably the best way to put it, because I know there's a bottles app, but that is, I think, Lutris's strength. We tend to install GOG Galaxy through Lutris, where it's like we have a native option. Why would you make that recommendation? Install EGS through Lutris. Why would you make that recommendation when you have a native solution? So to me, it's one of those like, we don't have a native solution for the Rockstar launcher, the EA launcher, the Ubisoft Connect kind of works and kind of doesn't. It depends on the game and depends on if Valve's fixed it again.
Right.
So for those solutions, I think something like Lutris is much more appropriate than just kind of this catch-all that a lot of people tend to throw at it.
For sure.
Interesting.
But yeah, Heroic is pretty cool. I think it's a super neat project. It looks really good. It also, I think there's integration into like the Steam with it as well. So if you configure it correctly, so the Steam Deck, so you can actually, whatever you install on the Heroic will actually appear in the carousel or whatever you call it in Steam.
Yeah, because basically, if you go into the Steam Deck and you run you're on Heroic, it gives you an option just to tell it to add to Steam. Usually you have to reboot Steam in order for that to add, but it adds it to the carousel. Nice. So it's just like, it's kind of like using EmuDeck on the Steam Deck. Same. Yep. It's like, oh, cool.
That integration is just the cat's pajamas right there. Pretty awesome.
Yep, top notch. And speaking of integration though, Nate, you're trying to integrate, sounds like, framework machines into your work.
Yes. So one of the joys of going to Ubuntu Summit was I got to meet one of the developers for the framework, and I made some connections. They got my business card for my employer, for which I'm an IT manager, and they're actually working on building their business clientele. And I was really enthusiastic, and I think I previously talked about how I embarrassed myself a little bit with my enthusiasm, not knowing the framework developer was. Worked for framework, and I'm just telling him how much I like the framework and all these neat things it can do. And so I felt stupid after that. But anyway, he actually sent a message to like their business sales department, CCing me in my work email, saying this might be probably the most enthusiastic framework, enthusiastic customer for a framework customer I've met, or something like that. Anyway, so I've actually began the transition actually as of today from day of recording that where I'm going to start purchasing framework machines, or there's one right now for someone in the Texas facility, and they're going to get their machine will be a framework. And so the thing is, it's actually slightly cheaper than getting Lenovo, Dell, or HP of similar spec. And the reason this machine is being retired that needs to be retired is because a port failed, and so they can't do their docks.
Wow.
And so it makes more sense. These are business machines, so they're going to get beat on. And like Louis Rossmann, he's actually said how he's actually damaged his machine by dropping it or whatever, and he actually just ended up breaking a port. So he put a new port in, and it's good to go. So the way I see it, if we move a transition to framework, and the port gets cranked on or whatever, we buy another $9 to $20 item as opposed to buying a $1,500 machine. And so the intent here is to save my company money in their IT budget as much as possible. So I think it's spec'd out right now. I got to go through the process of getting it, the approval process, since it's above a certain amount. So I don't approve those kind of, there's a process for it. So I can't just buy willy nilly whatever, which I wouldn't, because I'm kind of cheap anyway. But we're going to save just on this purchase for this employee. We're going to probably save between $500 and $800 somewhere in there, just by going with framework than going with another solution. So,
and that's not including the future savings of just being able to fix the piece that's broken.
Right. And so I talked to her about it today. I says, hey, this is the machine. I sent her a link. I said, these are the benefits of it. One, the keyboard's really great on the framework, actually. It's probably the best modern laptop keyboard you can buy. I think the Dell's from like 10 years ago or better, but marginally. But this is a really nice keyboard. And so I think she'll be happy with there. She travels, she's she's mobile and she's on site, so this will be good for her. We already have USB-C docking stations that she uses, so there's no new purchases there. And so this and again, if a port gets cranked on, place the port, we're good to go. And if the screen gets broken because we've had to replace other machines due to such things, we replace those parts and we're good to go. So that transit that's happening. I think tomorrow we'll probably have it ordered. I think we're gonna have to ship it to the Michigan facility because you have to assemble them, because they're ready to go models are not the specifications we desire. So we're just gonna build it ourselves. I don't know if I should maybe ask if she wants a specifically colored bezel. But anyway,
so you said we are going to build it ourselves. Is this one of those fun projects that you get to do, or is somebody else going to get to do it?
So when I say we, I mean like the IT team. So it's me and one other guy. And
massive team. It's just the business.
Massive team. So we're gonna send it to Michigan first, because I want him to actually assemble it ultimately, because I think that's gonna be the route we go, and then we'll ship it to the other facility. So
nice.
Yeah. So the computer.
So she's not local to you. She's in one of the other
she's not. Yeah.
Then.
So yeah. Correct. And I think it'll be fun for him to see it. He's excited about it. He thinks it's the right way to go. My immediate supervisor, she thinks it's the best way to go, and she actually looked at it, it's like, wow, that's actually really nice. I like it. So that might be the direction we go. And so between the framework 13s and the framework 16, if people want a larger one, right now I can't do a framework 16 because it's just not available. So we'll keep doing those. But for somebody who wants a smaller machine, which she actually requested a smaller machine that's more portable, I'm like, whoop, perfect. And also, like, I don't have to be worried about if it gets damaged in transit, because we can just buy replacement parts. So there's all these benefits. And so hopefully my company will be a good customer to framework going forward. And this is because Matt really hates talking about 3D printing, but I just want to, as an aside, I'm working on a framework project just using a main board. I've designed a cradle to hold on to it's still in works, but to hold on to a framework main board and contain a battery as well, which instead of being, next to each other like this, I'm folding it underneath. And so I'm really excited about this. This is just kind of a preview of things to come, and to some 3D printing framework talk for the future.
I'm super excited about that. I absolutely love it when you're talking about the framework stuff too. I know it's on my radar. I can't remember if it was during the show or if it was pre-show, us talking about, framework again, and me needing to look for something portable. So I would be holding out, not that I have the funding available to me right now to buy a laptop at the moment, but if I did, I'd still be holding out for that 16-inch model because I do like a larger screen. Obviously, I've got multiple screens, and I'd even want to take a portable screen with me just to get the work that I'm doing on it.
Oh, for sure.
But I'm curious how it works for you guys. I know you've loved yours, and it's going to be interesting to see how they're working in a business environment.
Now, I got to play with the 16. I think I told you that already. I got to move pieces and parts around. It is so cleverly designed. Like, I am so impressed by how it's designed. Like, the work that went into it. And this was just an engineering sample model. So like a prototype, not a prototype, but an engineering sample. So not all the tolerances were great, were 100%. I wanted to take pictures of it just because it was so cool. But he's like, I don't know if you should take pictures. Nope, I'm not going to.
Right, yeah.
We're good. But anyway, super cool. I think I hope this is the future of laptop computers. It's like the fun of the desktops, sort of, kind of coming back a little bit, sort of.
Yeah. Awesome.
So Wendy, I'm not fighting a framework battle, but you're fighting a DaVinci battle. What is this fight? And are you sore? Did you get knocked out? Who's winning?
I think I've been knocked out, and I'm pretty sure at this point, DaVinci's winning in the fact that it doesn't want to install properly in a lot of places. So it was running fine on my Garuda system, and I did an update Sunday morning or Saturday morning, or anyway, the day that DL was like recording again on Sunday and just knocking a whole bunch of stuff out, knocking 2 shows out. And then I spent most of the day trying to get it installed. And I couldn't figure out because it was just like a point release. So it's 18.6.3. So I'd been on 0.2. It had been running fine, no problem. I'd done the update from there before I ran the update, and it wouldn't launch. And the worst thing about it is I'm checking the logs and all of that stuff, and I'm not finding any actual errors, which is absolutely frustrating. So I'm like, okay, so I wonder if it's too new. I'm trying it on an Ubuntu system, and Ubuntu, I can get Studio because I've got Ubuntu Studio, being able to get it to launch. But the downside of that is then like the .mov files, they have audio but no video, which is really weird. And I don't know if that has something to do with the AMD drivers. I don't know whether it has something to do with the version of FFmpeg that's running. I don't know, because it's fine. I'm able to put in my license key. It runs, but nothing. I can get it to run on Fedora, but I'm getting these really weird issues with these GPU errors. And you can't install the NVIDIA proprietary drivers, not NVIDIA, the AMD proprietary drivers on Fedora. They do have some other workarounds and stuff. And like I said, I'm getting these GPU errors. And I sent a message to Neil over Mastodon, was like, hey, how do I get it to work there? And I will share a link to the following conversation, but it was not promising at all. Not promising at all. And Manjaro had been my usual go-to, my previous go-to before I started to be on Garuda on a regular basis. I threw Manjaro up and was really frustrated that they haven't updated the ISO in so long that the update process was already flippin' broken, because the updates from the ISO that you download to what needed to be installed was throwing errors, and it wouldn't flip an update. So I didn't even try to install DaVinci on it, because I'm like, I'm not dealing with a system that updates are already broken, right? I know on an Arch-based system, it's not Arch, it's an Arch-based system, but you still need to be doing pretty regular updates. And so, yeah, just pretty frustrated with DaVinci on Linux in general right now. So yes, you were supposed to be getting an episode of LOL during the Thanksgiving week. That didn't happen between fighting with DaVinci and trying to get ready for company over that. So you are getting that a week late, and we'll just kind of start the 2-week schedule from there. It's just kind of the way that it works sometimes. And I'm sure most people were busy during that time, because it would have dropped I guess the day before Thanksgiving. And so, yeah, people just crazy busy. So you are getting that one a week late, and then this one won't technically be late. We'll just keep with that every 2 weeks from there. But it is a battle. And with some of the clients that I am delivering videos to, DaVinci is a necessary part of that workflow. They use DaVinci, and that file, when I'm sending them stuff in the end, has to come with a DaVinci project file. So it's not like I can just jump to something else. I can't use another editor. I rely on it. And it has me, I feel so gross. Like I feel so absolutely dirty even mentioning this, but it has me considering getting an NVIDIA graphics card. Don't hate me. I don't need the hate mail. I already hate myself.
I thought you were going to say you were considering using OpenSUSE.
Ooh. I mean,
So-
if you
That's
want
painful too.
if you want a non-broken rolling release, yeah, then you would ditch the Arch. But
Okay, so I will totally talk to you about that off camera or whatever, even on. If I can get DaVinci working just fine with the proprietary drivers for AMD, and it could be the only system that I'm using for that, right? It could be just straight up, that's the only thing I boot into that system for is DaVinci, and then, to be honest, scared to ever update that thing. I could have used another word there, but I'll say thing. Just so that it, absolutely continues to work, and the work that I need to get done gets done. I'm not opposed to using OpenSUSE, but I know for a fact that it really does prefer at least the OpenCL proprietary drivers. The rest of the stack doesn't need to be proprietary, but OpenCL does seem to need to be proprietary in order to make that work in the back end. And then just dealing with a version of FFmpeg and H.264 encoders and stuff that work in general. So it is a bit of a fight. And I know in one of the episodes of DL, Ryan talked about how there was some community feedback saying, what do you think Linux is missing? And I would love it if it was just easier to install on a Linux desktop in general. I know where Red Hat has made some changes recently, and DaVinci was supporting Red Hat's CentOS and a special version of Rocky Linux that maybe they're going to have to go another route, because CentOS as it was in comparison to Rail isn't necessarily an option. So I'd love to see it, natively being able to install it on a DaVinci system or a Flatpak, something like that. So it's just easier to install. It is shipping with some older libraries. So even on Garuda or whatnot, you're having to change some libraries that it's referencing to in order to get it to launch. But I love Linux, and I was a Linux user first before DaVinci, and I still want to be able to use what I need to get my work done on a Linux operating system. I love it. I absolutely love Plasma. Plasma has spoiled me over the years with the options that it gives me and just the user interface, and I don't want to use anything else but a Plasma desktop and Linux underneath. So that's my current battle right now. It's not as much fun. It did put a show out late, plus the holiday, all of that good stuff, more robotic stuff coming. That's also eating up my time, but I'll get it figured out. I was kind of sad when the stuff coming from Neil wasn't quite so positive and just being able to get it to work, but it is what it is.
Well, I don't have any real solid information right now on the AMD GPU Pro. I know that it does exist; it is available, but I'll have to do some digging.
Okay.
It's probably not mainline. It's definitely not mainline. So I have to dig on that.
From an Arch-based system, I've been installing the OpenCL component from the AUR in order to get that to work. There are a few distros that do have it straight up, like, Ubuntu does. They do have, or AMD does make the proprietary driver package for that system. But then, like I said, I'm running into other errors. And I know for sure that DaVinci likes NVIDIA graphics cards better. They actually develop more for the line of NVIDIA graphics cards. And then it's so easy to install the proprietary drivers for NVIDIA on any distro. There's no problem. But for AMD, the one who is the most open is the biggest struggle to get those. And when you have to have them, like even Darktable, if I'm using OpenCL for Darktable, it really does want those drivers directly from the proprietary ones in order to get it to work. If I'm using the OpenCL files, I haven't got it to work. I've only been able to get it to work with a proprietary OpenCL in Darktable, which is a 100% open source program. So maybe I'm doing it wrong. That's 1,000% possibility. I'm not saying that I got this right. I'm just a user. I'm just a user that uses Linux, and I'm really dumb when it comes to the back end of things. And I'm open with the fact that it could be me. I could be the problem. So if it is me, and you do know a way to fix that, I'm all ears. Totally open.
Wendy, did you turn it on, turn it off again?
I did turn it on and turn it off again. And we'd reached a point on that Sunday that I was ready to Office Space my desktop.
I think, Wendy, your version of Office Spacing your desktop would simply just be looking at NVIDIA to begin with.
That, like I said, that does make me feel really, really gross in order to do that. But, you know, it's kind of along the lines that you've talked about. You use the right tool for the job. And sometimes that does include choosing hardware that works nicely with the software that you need to use. And in that case, that's where NVIDIA would come in, because it doesn't matter what distro I want to use. All of that stack is available in any of them. And it's just not available for AMD, which is weird.
Yeah. I was going to say, the one thing is a lot of distros go out of their way to actually ship a lot of the NVIDIA stuff, usually in the ISO.
Yeah.
Not always, but for the most part.
But typically they do.
Like Ubuntu, Pop! OS, a lot of the mainline distros do, or major distros do. So.
Yeah.
No, I definitely understand your frustration, and don't get it twisted. We're not saying NVIDIA is great, because it has its own stack of problems. But in this case, for use case, it might be the only option the user, ironically Wendy here, can use. And it is what it is. And if, you know, I know a lot of the purists are going to be like, oh my God, you're using the evil empire. And it's like, oh, Nate uses MS Teams, so, you know, we all use the evil empire in different ways.
And Bill has to use Windows for work. So it's being able to have the environment that I want, you know, still being able to run things on Linux, and then have the software that is the productivity that I need. And if that means getting an NVIDIA graphics card, I will do it, so that I have the consistency that it not breaking as often, at least anyway, with updates, because I have those necessary drivers everywhere.
As Wendy almost throws up in the process of saying that.
So,
yeah.
Real quick, Matt, in my defense, yes, I use Teams all the time, and Outlook, which, by the way, that the mail client that talked about on Destination Linux,
I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, I know
Prospect
the one you're
Mail.
talking about.
I had to check.
Yeah.
That's actually what I use all the time. I wrote an article on cubiclegate.com about that. I should have probably put that in the forums.
Were you the one who sent in the listener feedback for that one?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't think so. Maybe. I listen. So that said,
no, you don't. Don't lie.
No, I don't. I don't remember. I've been hit too many times in the head. So I will say Microsoft has made strides in using Linux in the Microsoft ecosystem way better than it was. I would say when I started my job, I tried living on Windows exclusively. It was so painful, and it made me actually hate doing the work.
Good job.
But now that I'm using OpenSUSE regularly, it makes the job fun. So anyway, Matt, you did like what gave me a little bit of a ribbing on the living in Microsoft land. Now I live in the OpenSUSE land with a little sprinkling of Microsoft now. Well, heavy sprinkling of Microsoft.
There we go. There's the right answer.
It's a dumping of Microsoft, but nonetheless on OpenSUSE. And they have terrible documentation. It's real bad.
Microsoft or OpenSUSE?
Microsoft.
OpenSUSE.
Microsoft. It might be some of the worst. And they have lots of it. They have lots of really dumpy documentation. So.
Oh, come on. Anytime you open up the problem, troubleshooting thing that it tells you to go to when you have a problem, it gives you the best advice. Turn it on and turn it off. Throw it against the wall.
They need to
Bill
bring
knows
back
exactly what I mean.
That's why I'm
bring back
my head.
Clippy, because Clippy was useless, and so is Microsoft documentation. So you may as well just put them all back together.
You might as well use Clippy.
Clippy's at least
Clippy
cute.
was secretly Microsoft Bob. I still stand by this statement.
It's probably true, but Clippy was cute, and I even have Clippy stickers for my Telegram.
He was cute, huh? I think we have different definitions of cute.
Yes.
Just like we have different definitions of what's healthy, Nate, like your unhealthy obsession with OpenSUSE.
It keeps me alive and breathing and happy. So
notice he does not disregard or deny the fact that it's unhealthy. I'm just
it's
saying.
not unhealthy.
Once again, yeah.
Totally healthy. It's a good balance of it's my computing staple.
Now it's your turn to toss in your 2 cents on today's topics. Hit the discourse form, drop us a line under this video, or visit the contact form by going to tuxdigital.com/contact. If you'd like to hang out with us on our preferred social media, see the links in the bottom of the show description. Find other great shows like Fit and Fueled, Destination Linux, Linux Saloon, and so much more at tuxdigital.com. Show off your love for your favorite shows and podcasts by visiting the Tux Digital merch store. Grab yourself some awesome swag like the gamer-centric I paused my game to be here shirt, or join hashtag Team Wendy with some sinister Wendy swag. As always, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time with another awesome episode of Linux Out Loud. Until then, keep the banter friendly, the conversation somewhat on topic, and have fun doing it.